February 1944, Tachikawa Airfield, Tokyo Prefecture. The winter wind howls across the tarmac as a group of Japanese officers gather around a captured American reconnaissance photo. On it, a massive silver shape stretches across the frame, sleek and alien, a giant among machines. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress. Major General Shigeru Fukudome squints through his wire-rimmed glasses. They say it can fly over 30,000 feet, he mutters, voice tinged with disbelief. A colonel beside him snorts. At that height? It would freeze the crew solid. Typical American exaggeration. Laughter ripples through the command tent. To the men of the Imperial Japanese Army Air Service, the B-29 is a fantasy. Too large, too heavy, too complicated to ever threaten their homeland. For years, Japan had fought a war built on precision, courage, and spirit, not machines. Their pilots believed that willpower could outmatch technology. They had faced the clumsy early B-17 and dismissed them as lumbering targets. To them, this new bomber, the so-called Superfortress, was just another boast. But 2,000 miles away, in the heat of Kansas, that boast was taking shape in cold, polished aluminum. Wichita, Kansas, Boeing Plant 2. Engines rumble like thunder as assembly lines churn day and night. Each week, hundreds of B-29s roll out under the watchful eyes of Rosie the riveters and engineers who barely sleep. The machine is an engineering miracle. 4 Radar 3350 engines, pressurized cabins, remote-controlled gun turrets, and a range of 3,000 miles. For the men designing it, the mission is personal: to bring the war to Japan's doorstep. Colonel Thomas S. Power, standing before a half-assembled fuselage, runs a hand along the smooth aluminum skin. She'll fly higher, faster, and hit harder than anything they've ever seen, he says to a young test pilot. And one day, she'll end this war. June 1944, China, Burma, India Theater. The first B-29s arrive in theater under 22 Bomber Command. Their target, Japanese industrial centers in mainland China and Southeast Asia. But it's a logistical nightmare. Fuel must be flown in, every gallon carried by another plane. For every bomb dropped, 10 gallons are burned. Crews fight through monsoon weather, mechanical failures, and primitive runways. Dozens of B-29s crash before even reaching their targets. In Tokyo, Japanese intelligence intercepts the first reports of B-29 raids over Yawata. The damage is minimal. General Hideki Tojo dismisses it with a wave of his hand. A failed experiment. The Americans waste their steel. What Tojo doesn't realize, is that this failure is only the rehearsal. The U.S. Army Air Forces are learning, adapting, and building bases closer every day. November 1944, Saipan, Mariana Islands. The sea still smells of gunpowder and death. The Battle of Saipan has ended, and with it, Japan's defensive perimeter. Now, from the newly captured airfields, the B-29s can reach Tokyo directly. General Curtis LeMay, commander of the 21st Bomber Command, stands before a hangar packed with superfortresses. He's short, stocky, and chain-smokes cigars like ammunition belts. Behind his cold expression lies a single-minded focus: efficiency through fire. We're not here to bomb factories, he growls to his staff. We're here to burn Japan's war machine. Every bolt, every beam, every home that builds it. By now, the Japanese can hear the distant growl of engines at night. 30,000 feet above, Silver giants glide silently through thin air, dropping high explosives that explode like distant thunder over Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka. And still, Japanese officers laugh. Their bombs fall like rain, one says in a newspaper interview. But rain does not break stone. The arrogance blinds them, because LeMay is about to change the weather. He realizes that high-altitude precision bombing isn't working. The jet stream scatters the bombs. So he makes a decision that will redefine warfare. Take out the high explosives, he orders. Load incendiaries. Drop to 5,000 feet. We're going to burn them out. The crews stare in silence. Flying low means flying into anti-aircraft fire, into death. But they know LeMay isn't bluffing, and so they prepare. Hundreds of B-29s, each loaded with M69 incendiary clusters filled with jellied gasoline, await takeoff. The target, Tokyo, a city of wood and paper, a city that still sleeps, thinking itself untouchable. March 9th, 1945, Anderson Field, Guam. Engines roar to life under a starless sky. The ground shakes as one after another, the superfortresses climb into the black. Each carries its own small apocalypse. From above, the Pacific looks calm, endless, almost innocent. But somewhere beyond the horizon, beneath the haze of night, millions of civilians are preparing for another restless sleep, unaware that within hours, their city will glow brighter than the sun. The laughter will end in fire. February 1945, Mariana Islands. The air smells of diesel, sweat, and ocean salt. Rows upon rows of Boeing B-29 Superfortresses stand gleaming under the morning sun at Northfield. Tinian. Each one a metallic giant, nearly 100 feet long. Their 4 Wright R3350 engines rumbling like caged thunder. Mechanics in grease-stained coveralls hurry beneath the wings, checking fuel lines and loading 500-pound incendiary clusters. The mission board beside the hangars simply reads, Target, Tokyo. Inside the operations tent, Major General Curtis LeMay leans over a map littered with red pins. Cigarette smoke curls upward as he speaks in a gravelly voice, half command, half confession. High-altitude precision isn't working. We've been missing factories for months. Tonight, we go low. Strip the guns, load the fire. An uneasy murmur passes through the room. The plan sounds suicidal. Flying massive bombers at barely 5,000 feet, without armor, over the most heavily defended city in Asia. But LeMay's mind is made up. If high explosives can't break Japan, fire will. By sunset, the crews begin suiting up. The clatter of parachute buckles and oxygen masks echoes through the briefing hall. Captain Robert "Doc" Morgan, pilot of the dauntless Dottie, watches his co-pilot grin nervously. Tokyo, huh? Yeah, Morgan mutters. They laughed at us once. Let's see if they're still laughing after tonight. At 7:30 p.m., engines roar to life across Tinian. The first wave of B-29s rolls down the coral runways, their propellers carving glowing arcs in the humid night air. From a distance, it looks like an iron migration, a steady line of silver beasts lifting into the darkness 8 hours later. Over the Pacific, 300 bombers form a sprawling aerial convoy. The only light comes from the moon, glinting off polished fuselages. Inside the cramped cockpits, the crews fight fatigue, 12 men to a plane, each with a role to play and a fear to silence. The navigator checks his chart. Course 295 degrees. Wind from the west. The gunner stares into the void, scanning for night fighters that never come. And the bombardier, his hand resting on the release switch, wonders what waits below. At 1:45 a.m., Tokyo appears on radar. A vast patch of gray static, stretching wider than imagination. Below, the city sleeps, unaware that history is gliding silently above the clouds. The first Pathfinder planes descend to 5,000 feet, engines howling. They drop clusters of magnesium flares that burst open and drift slowly earthward, bathing the city in eerie white light. Streets, rivers, and rooftops flicker into visibility. The target zones, Shitamachi, Tokyo's wooden residential districts, gleam like tinder. Behind them, the main formations adjust course. Radio chatter fills the airwaves. Red 1 to lead. Target marked. Wind steady. You are clear to drop. LeMay's new tactic. Low-altitude incendiary saturation begins. Bomb bay doors open. From each plane, thousands of M69 napalm bomblets rain down in long, molten chains. The first explosions ripple across the city like camera flashes. Wooden roofs erupt instantly, sending orange plumes swirling upward. The gunners glance down and freeze. Tokyo is catching fire faster than they can comprehend. A B-29 gunner later recalls, "You could see streets disappear. Flames raced like rivers." I remember thinking, my God, the whole city's burning. The pilots bank hard to avoid updrafts. The heat below is so intense, it lifts the bombers several hundred feet. Through the cockpit glass, they can see columns of fire merging, block after block, until the city glows like the surface of the sun. At 2:15 a.m., the second wave arrives. Smoke climbs higher than their flight path. Engines choke as oxygen thins. From above, the spectacle is both magnificent and horrifying. A living inferno swallowing Tokyo whole. In the back of one bomber, the radio operator mutters, "They said the B-29 was too slow. Looks fast enough to me." No one laughs, because down there, beneath that swirling sea of flame, tens of thousands of lives are ending. And the men in the air can smell the burning even at altitude. As dawn begins to break over the Pacific, the last formation turns for home. Behind them, Tokyo is gone, replaced by a churning black cloud that stretches all the way to the horizon. The laughter has indeed ended, but for the men who witnessed it, so has something inside themselves. Tokyo, 2:30 a.m. The night sky is no longer dark. It is alive, red, white, and gold, trembling with heat. In the Shitamachi district, narrow streets packed with wooden homes and paper walls vanish in seconds. The first waves of incendiaries explode through roofs like glowing hail. Sparks become flame. Flame becomes a storm. Within minutes, entire neighborhoods are devoured. A witness later recalled, "It was as if the very air was burning." The Imperial Japanese Air Defense Command scrambles. Sirens wail across the city as officers shout into malfunctioning radios. Searchlights pierce the smoke but reveal nothing. The B-29s are flying too low, too fast, and there are too many of them. At Tachikawa Airfield, Lieutenant Koji Tanaka, a veteran of China and Rabaul, grips the edge of the operations table. His men look to him for orders. He whispers, "Where are they?" An aide replies, "Everywhere." They send up a few Nakajima J-1 night fighters, but by the time the planes reach altitude, the skies above Tokyo are boiling with turbulence. Pilots can barely keep control. Anti-aircraft shells burst blindly in the haze. Below, the flames are so bright that the pilot's goggles whiten. Tanaka radios in one last time. There's nothing left to defend. Back on the ground, the civil defense brigades, Ordinary men and women armed with buckets and bamboo poles form desperate lines. But every drop of water evaporates before it hits the flames. The rivers themselves begin to boil. Mothers clutch children, running toward the Sumida River, thinking water means safety. But thousands are already there. Packed shoulder to shoulder, smoke choking their lungs. The air above the river flashes white as flaming debris drifts down like snow. One survivor, Haruko Yoshida, later said, "We tried to breathe through wet rags." The river was full of people, but no one moved anymore. The firestorm feeds on itself. The heat rises to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,000 degrees Celsius. Winds of 50 miles per hour whip through the streets, dragging people, carts, even animals into the vortex. Asphalt melts. Iron shutters curl like paper. By 3 a.m., 16 square miles of the city, from Asakusa to Kanda, from Ueno to Honjo, are gone. Meanwhile, above the clouds, the bomber crews begin to understand what they've done. Inside the dauntless Dottie, Captain Morgan keeps his hands tight on the controls as turbulence rocks the fuselage. His bombardier, Sergeant Hayes, stares silently through the blister window. "Sir, it's like the whole city's turned to fire." Morgan doesn't respond. For the rest of his life, he'll remember that silence. The kind that follows unimaginable noise. Back in Tokyo, Emperor Hirohito is awakened in the Imperial Palace, miles away from the inferno. Advisors urge him to move underground, but he refuses. He walks to the veranda and looks east. The horizon glows red, brighter than dawn. He turns to his staff and murmurs, "So, this is what they bring." The words hang in the air like smoke. At 4 a.m., the last of the B-29s clear Tokyo Bay. The city below no longer exists, only embers and ash where millions once lived. The crews maintain radio silence on the flight home. Some fall asleep at their stations, others simply stare at their hands, realizing those same hands had held the switch that ended so many lives. When they land at Tinian, General LeMay meets them on the runway. No speeches, no celebration, just a curt nod. "Good work, get some rest." Then he turns away. By sunrise, reconnaissance planes circle Tokyo. The pilots can't believe what they see. A black scar 16 miles wide, smoke rising in pillars straight into the stratosphere. The photographs show no streets, no buildings, just geometric patterns of ruin. The official report later reads, 100,000 killed, 1 million homeless. The greatest single act of destruction in human history. Until Hiroshima. But those numbers, sterile and cold, cannot capture the truth of that night. The screams, the wind, the faces lit by 1,000 fires. For Japan's military command, it is a nightmare realized. The B-29, once mocked as too slow, too heavy, too far away, has proven unstoppable. And as word spreads through the ranks of the Imperial Army, one bitter truth settles in every soldier's heart. The war is already lost. March 11th, 1945. Tokyo. The sun rises over a city that no longer exists. What was once the beating heart of Japan, the crowded alleys, shrines, markets, and wooden homes, is now an endless plain of smoke and ruin. The air smells of burned oil, wet ash, and something worse. The unmistakable scent of humanity turned to dust. From above, American reconnaissance planes circle silently. The men inside are speechless. One of them, Lieutenant Jack Collins, later wrote, "It looked like the moon, but we knew the moon never screamed." On the ground, the survivors stumble through the wreckage. They move like ghosts. silent, stunned, covered in soot and blood. Many are barefoot. A woman kneels where her home once stood, holding a teacup melted to her hand. Nearby, a fireman still clutches a hose fused into solid metal. Children wander through blackened ruins, calling for their mothers. An old man sits beside the river, surrounded by bodies, whispering Buddhist prayers that no one is alive to hear. No rescue crews come. There are none left to send. At Imperial General Headquarters, the senior staff meets in a darkened room. Maps lie across the table, marked with red circles: Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe, all within range of the B-29 Superfortress. General Yoshijiro Umezu, chief of the Army General Staff, pounds his fist on the table. These raids, they will destroy the empire before the Americans even land. But no one speaks. They know he's right. The B-29 has broken every rule of conventional warfare. It has taken the fight beyond the front lines, into the heart of Japan itself. Half a world away, on the island of Tinian, the crews of the 73rd and 313th Bomb Wings return from Tokyo. Ground crews greet them in silence. No one cheers. The mechanics count bullet holes and repair scorched fuselages, but their hands tremble. Captain Morgan walks toward his tent, still in his flight jacket. His navigator, Sergeant Hayes, follows behind. Neither man has slept. Hayes finally says, "Sir, we didn't hit a target." "We hit everything." Morgan stops. He looks out toward the horizon, where the next wave of bombers is already lining up for another mission. "That's the point," he says quietly. "That's what they want." He doesn't sound proud. He sounds tired, as if the war has already taken something from him he'll never get back. In Washington, General Curtis LeMay reviews the damage reports. The tone of the document is clinical, precise. Tokyo, 16 square miles destroyed. Casualties, approximately 100,000 dead. Result, maximum effectiveness confirmed. LeMay signs it and turns to his staff. "We'll do it again," he says. "Nagoya next." To him, this isn't cruelty, it's efficiency. His goal is simple: end the war as fast as possible, whatever the cost. Back in Tokyo, Emperor Hirohito tours the ruins in secret. His car moves slowly through streets lined with corpses and rubble. His aides cover their mouths to block the stench, but he does not. He steps out near Asakusa, where only a few brick chimneys remain standing amid the ruins. A little boy, no older than 7, stumbles forward and bows. His hair is singed, his skin blistered. The emperor stares at him for a long moment before turning to his men. He says only one word: "Enough." But it will take 5 more months and 2 atomic bombs before that word becomes truth. By summer, Tokyo will burn again and again. Each time, fewer defenses, fewer firefighters, fewer homes. By July 1945, 67 Japanese cities will have been bombed into rubble. Nearly 500,000 civilians will die. The B-29, once doubted and mocked, has become the hammer of the Pacific War, a machine of fire and thunder that can erase cities in a single night. The Japanese High Command will never recover from the psychological blow of that first raid. From that night onward, they know that no fortress, not even the heart of their empire, is beyond reach. As the months pass, the world will come to know the names of other horrors: Hiroshima, Nagasaki. But for those who were in Tokyo on March 10th, 1945, the memory of that night never fades. Survivor Haruko Yoshida, now an old woman, once told a reporter, "People remember Hiroshima." But Tokyo burned first. The fire came from the sky, and the city disappeared. I can still hear the wind screaming. In the end, the B-29 Superfortress wasn't just an airplane. It was a symbol of industrial might, of technological power, and of humanity's terrifying capacity to destroy itself. The officers who once laughed at it were gone. Their cities, their armies, their empire turned to ash. And on that night, above Tokyo's burning skyline, the age of modern warfare truly began.